How does industry turn this ship around?
That's a nice easy question to start with, isn't it? One of the things that drives me nuts is we can compete by solving the problem. OEMs, end users in the UK will go out to the market and ask for a specific piece of equipment rather than saying, I want something to solve this problem. And what they drive is a price war on a specific piece of equipment, when what we might have, our members might have, the British industry might have, is a better solution to the problem. Can you put the problem on the market, not the equipment? And then we can compete.
What qualifies you to answer these sorts of questions?
The bulk of my career has been specifying, designing and delivering major automated systems. So systems that are £50 million plus, delivered over 3-4 years with 4, 5, 6, 700 robots included within the system. So I am now CEO of Automate UK.
So it's gone downhill for him.
A podcast I did earlier means I'm going to get hate mail from teachers.
My wife's a teacher, so you're on proper thin.
Yeah,
ice,
well,
mate.
Might be the last podcast where I've got this nose.
Yeah.
Going back with Barry Manilow.
Who?
He's got quite half a nose.
Again. But schools is a long-term game. That's more of a change of perception, I think. We've got kids that are sat in engineering classes right now that won't get a job.
It's their job.
Yeah, I know.
It's their job. Oh, the big one companies are going to have to go around 10 things. Go and do something else. You want to be really frank? It's their job.
Of course he should. I don't know what, right? That's his job.
This is Manufacturing Uncensored. No safe answers, no PR spin.
And this episode is about whether the UK is actually serious about automation. So we're going to start big. How does industry turn this ship around?
That's a nice easy question to start with, isn't it? The UK has one of the most vibrant, innovative manufacturing, research industries in the world. We are right at the very top. The bit that's frustrating that we're not good at is turning the innovation, the ideas, the entrepreneurialism into big, viable companies. That's the bit the Americans are good at, it's the bit the Chinese are good at. We're good at making startups, we're not good at making the sort of robust, larger organisations. But there's a lot of things that the government could do to help that, and it doesn't necessarily need the government to tell people what to do. It's about creating the right environment for that to be able to happen, and the right incentives for that to be able to happen. Giving companies the opportunity to think slightly in the longer term and recognising that the things that companies are battling with day to day is not technology, it's not equipment, it's cash flow and capital investment and legislation. And if we could just make those things easier and give the people who are running the companies a better opportunity to think longer, they will think in the longer term. That's the way to turn the ship around. The other bit, and the bit that I think we can help with Automate UK, is companies need to recognise and try to understand what their customers actually need. Because we're all horribly geeky. I'm an engineer, okay, so we're all a bit horribly geeky around equipment, and we talk about equipment and we love equipment and what it does, and we love technology and we talk about technical specifications. What our customers need is they need to solve problems, they need to solve solutions, and they're also running companies, and they're running companies for a purpose, and the company's purpose is to make money. So the things that we provide have to serve that purpose, they have to solve that need, they have to provide solutions. So that's how you turn the ship around. You get the right environment for companies to think in the longer term that allows them to think about capital investment properly, get rid of the short-termism, and get SMEs in particular to think about end user problems rather than thinking about their own bits of kit.
You just need to mic drop when we end the podcast, right?
I can go now.
It's got to be a 40, right? That's it, Tom. I've done the intros. Is that?
But if an end user has a problem, they go out to the SME market to fix it, and we do have fantastic engineering experience here that could fix that problem. But if a Chinese SME could deliver that solution at a third of the price, which is happening, how do we regain that business? How do we keep that?
I disagree with that, because a Chinese SME, if you're looking at solving problems, what you've got is that a lot of the components that solve the problem are Chinese at the moment, and that's all right. What we got to make sure what doesn't happen is what you're saying. Okay, so we're lucky that a lot of Chinese equipment that comes in to automate or whatever isn't really suitable for the market from a safety point of view, and also in China they just run multiples of one thing, but it'll be one car, one flavour of crisp, one thing. So we have benefit that complete systems can be made in this country or can be sold and integrated in this country, and we got to keep the competitive edge. The fact there's a lot of Chinese componentry in them is no bad thing, actually. That's probably about the right mix, but we've got to preserve the mix. And I think the problem is that Dan's alluding to is that we go and listen to customers' problems, and as people who sell integrated equipment, what Dan did previously and I do, you probably try and shoehorn a thing in rather than actually make it fit for purpose.
Yeah, definitely.
And we got to stop the shoehorning, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
But how do you do that without driving your own price up?
Because you can't, because you don't drive your own price up though, because I think that's a bit of a misnomer. I mean, I can't think of anything that an Automate member makes that isn't a variation on a theme. You actually look at what, obviously this is going to be a bit Automate centric with me and Dan on, plus one of the main sponsors, we want some rate of return, right? Is Gutter Engineering Insights, etc., etc. But you look at it, most of the equipment that Automate members make for any industry, they're using a range of standard sub-assemblies into a complete system. It's not like you go from one thing to another. And it's more about how you're probably, when you're talking about solving the problem rather than shoehorning, you're probably actually talking about actually only redesigning or being innovative on one sub-assembly. You can manage that cost, it's easy. It's not actually as hard as you think, but I think, I don't know, I mean, whether you attest this, Dan, right, because you and I are doing the same but different for the last how many years, me obviously from a food manufacturing point of view, you from kind of automotive and stuff, is that we used to be really bad at selling automation. It does this, and by the way, I at this factory we did this, and it turned people off. We now are going out and getting applications, would be my perception, and we're listening to people, but it's a bit like being on a first date. We're thinking about the answer we want to give before we fully listen. And actually, I think we got, as an industry, we've got to get better at listening to the complete question.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The sort of analogy of a first date, but I quite like that. When you're sitting at the bar talking to someone, you don't want to be the guy who's going, I've got a brilliant car, I've got a fantastic job, look at my suit, look at my trainers. You want to be the guy who's saying, tell me about you, tell me about you, tell me about you. You want to know about the person that you're trying to date. I think that's quite a good analogy. If you understand what the person that you're trying to date is trying to do, you can tailor what you're doing to what they do. What we've got with customers in the UK is we've got proximity. We're there, we can go and see them. It's easy for us to do. That's a huge advantage over competition from the Far East or even Eastern Europe. So we can be present, and we can be present in the long term, so service and support. So we can provide the right solution and to the genuine problem. That one of the things that drives me nuts is when OEMs, end users in the UK, will go out to the market and ask for a specific piece of equipment rather than saying, I want something to solve this problem. And what they drive is a price war on a specific piece of equipment, when what we might have, our members might have, the British industry might have, is a better solution to the problem. Can you put the problem on the market, not the equipment? And then we can compete, because we can compete by solving the problem rather than just, retail delivering a piece of equipment. We're better than that.
And you got another section to that. If you look at the most fundamental, PPMA membership is kind of the most fundamental membership of Automate, our biggest number. You look at pouch or bag filling, you would have 20 years ago have had a situation where it could have been a bidding war, and it would have been just that amount of speed and who bids wins. But even on that standardised bit of kit, not demeaning it, 'cause there's some brilliant stuff out there. The variables have changed. The packaging material might need to be sustainable, recyclable. The turnover, the turnover of different products will be probably tenfold higher. Rather than producing for one supermarket, it's probably producing for 15. And then you've got a situation that one thing that the industry, we're here at Clearview today, you'll be an exponent of this, that a lot of traditional packaging machinery and lines in FMCG are having secondary technology in them, so vision systems, so check weighing within them. So if you just spec it at 160 a minute and let me know what your recommended spares and have you got service engineers, you're actually setting yourself up to fail. And as a supplier, so as a customer, and as a supplier, if you entertain that, you're in the same thing. You actually need to be looking at the problem. The fact it's still a bag is a thing, right? But the person who understands the factors is more likely to be the person who wins the business.
And suppliers buy equipment sometimes. They run equipment all of the time. So the customers who are running that equipment all of the time, that longer term relationship, that support and the service and the ability to provide a service engineer who possibly worked on the job or has seen the job, has got access to the facility where it was made. If it's doing something really strange, they've got access to the engineers that designed it. It's a big advantage for us, and we ought to be weighing into it more.
So I'm going to throw an anecdotal spanner in the works. So I was sat at at one of these dinners, and I had a manufacturer next to me, and he opened the conversation with, "I'll never buy in Europe again." And I'm very much like you two. Like, I'm a very, very proud British manufacturer, and every argument I had for him, he had a rebuttal. And I said, "Service," and he said, "Well, we start with price. So the same line that he was paying around €1 million for from Germany, the Chinese were delivering at $50,000 to his shop floor." I was like, "Oh, well, what about like something breaks or installation, maintenance, service?" He went, "Well, it takes a couple of days for a German to rock up, but they want €1,000, €1,200 day rate. The Chinese, it might take them 5 days, 7 days to get here, but it's $120 a day. And, I could buy 20 of their machines, put them in the back. When the one fails, I just bring another one out." And at every argument I had, he had something back for me.
What was in industry, Tom?
Packaging.
Or making of packaging?
He was like a contract packager for like whey protein and stuff like that. Do you want to out him?
Powdered chicken.
I don't know.
His biggest problem is, why is he buying from Germany? He needs to buy from the UK, because then you're still buying from outside the UK. So if you buy from inside the UK, buy from inside the UK, because then you're not waiting 2 days to get someone. You're going to get someone much, much quicker. If you're buying equipment that you can allow to go down for 5-7 days at a time, your facility is not efficient enough.
Yeah.
So you're either buying equipment or you've overspec. Anybody who can let the downtime go on for a week, that you're not sweating your assets.
No.
I don't quite get it, if I'm honest. So he's probably doing it, but okay. So you take our view, a viewer take on that. At the moment, he's a standard deviation spike on a trend curve. Yeah. We need to make sure that he remains that. Put frankly, or his Chinese equipment remains that, and we need to make better use. Because if he wants to scale up a situation with that equipment, and there's not service, and there's not technical support, and there's not front end, it will hit a glass roof. If his business takes off, grows exponentially, he will then need to look at an integrated start to finish line, and that needs to be produced by either people who manufacture people in the equipment in the UK, or people like me who've got project management and have got service support in the UK. So, but what we need to make sure is that we need to make sure that we maintain that, and that is basically making sure, as Dan's saying, that we get better at looking at the problem.
And we're not. I'm sure we're not the only country that's having this discussion.
No,
it'll be every single.
everywhere.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if something happens, and lately in the world things have been happening, and your supply chain breaks down, that 5 to 7 days might be 6 months.
Yep.
You might not be able to get something. If your supply chain includes components from a country that's a long way away, that there's not stock of in the UK, all of a sudden you've got a redundant piece of machinery. If it's sitting in the middle of a line, you've lost a whole line. You've just turned off however X amount of percentage of your revenue completely. So that sort of supply chain resilience and disaster planning, it's becoming more and more prevalent.
And it's back. I mean, I spent this morning replying to 2 customers about what the effect of Iran is, and that's quite important. I was able to think even down to like an ultrasonic sensor we use this on something. I think, well, if we haven't got it on our stock, the Germans have got it, plus I can get it from the manufacturer from here, and then if I run out of that option, I can swap it out with the IFM version. And you need that depth and detail, and you will not get that from going really big time offshore, which would be overseas, which would be China, which would be India, and would be South America.
Yeah. The other thing is, it's quite short term. So the equipment that's being supplied from China that is cheap at the moment and it's evolving and it's getting better all the time, and there is lots of good equipment. There's lots of, you see it in the car industry, there's lots and lots of good quality stuff coming, but the stuff that's better quality costs more money. China's becoming a more expensive economy. It's natural. So what you're buying is a piece of equipment that is cheap now and is going to be replaced. It's not going to be something that's held in the long term. You're going to have a redundant piece of equipment in a couple of years because their technology will have moved on. The company that supplied it will have moved on. They won't be supporting that anymore. The danger of having a white elephant on your shop floor it's real. And as the equipment moves on, what it does is it gets more expensive, and the specifications tend to align with Western specifications anyway, and it becomes more comparable in price, and all of a sudden it's not worth waiting 4 or 5 days for a service engineer.
Yep.
I also think the other thing you need to factor on, so the person you're talking about is dealing with the food stuff. I think there's a piece that, again, we've got to make sure that we reaffirm, is that if you're buying equipment from an Automate member, whether they produce in the UK, support in the UK, whatever, that they are supporting you with accountability, and with for the end users who are in food and in pharmaceutical, that accountability is so important. You know, heaven forbid, and you almost don't want to say it out loud, but obviously one of the biggest threats you could have off one of my bits of equipment is that we have something that causes food to go off, and that can cause a lot of issues, right? But I'm accountable with my manufacturing site in Germany and with the end user. And every time we service it, we're collectively accountable. I don't think if I was a food or pharmaceutical producer of any size, from a 3-man business to something like GSK, I don't think I'd be really cool with taking that on at the moment and having the accountability on me. Because ultimately the repercussions that I expect purely on price rather than safety is really shocking. I mean, I know of food and pharmaceutical processors, you know, kind of at circa £100 million turnover, who have gone out of business in 6 weeks because they had some form of hygiene issue and they didn't take accountability seriously. Quite often it's not actually the issue, like, you know, sadly somebody's tampered with something like a disgruntled employee. It's actually that, you know, because you can piss anybody off and they react, but it's actually they didn't have the accountability. And speccing equipment and that accountability is crucial.
Yeah, accountability, and it's a really good point you raised, because traceability as well in in food, in pharmaceuticals, in aerospace, in anything to do with defence. If you want that traceability, if you want the supplier to work with you and retain data and help you retain data and analyse that data, that's a difficult thing to do with a Chinese company now. It's, you know, there are contracts where you're not going to be able to do that. So you're going to protect your organisation in the long term. Having data control within the UK, it's a bit of self-protection in there.
What qualifies you to answer these sorts of questions?
I've been in automation since I left university. So my degree is in automotive engineering design. I spent the first 10 years of my life working in major OEM automotive companies, ruining their engineering by telling them what they could and couldn't make. So I'd sit and look at the clays and say, that looks absolutely glorious. You can't form that, you can't bend that, you can't hem that. This is what you need to be able to do. Then the bulk of my career has been specifying, designing and delivering major automated systems. So systems that are £50 million plus, delivered over 3-4 years with 4, 5, 6, 700 robots included within the system. Lots and lots of standard modules within that, but overall completely unique designs. And I've done that all over the world. So I've got a reasonable understanding of these things.
Qualified.
Yeah, I think it's all right, that, isn't it?
And what's your job title now?
So I am now CEO of Automate UK, which is the trade body for automation companies within the UK, exactly as it says on the tin, which I love.
So it's gone downhill for him.
I knew there was a reason he was here. Right, first segment is called Uncensored Headlines. So we're just going to go through some topics that are going on in the industry, and James is going to press you on them. My job is just to ask the question and kick it off. UK continues to lag behind global competitors in automation adoption. Are we actually behind, or are we just getting comfortable being average?
We are actually behind. Okay, we are genuinely behind. It drives me nuts. There are some soft reasons for that. There's a couple of hard reasons, and the hard reasons are a little bit more difficult to deal with. So we have an economy in the UK that is fantastic for setting up businesses. The way we deal or have dealt with labour allows you to start a company relatively easily, bring people in and make adjustments as that company grows. It's got a flexible labour market. That's really hard to do in France or Italy. It's a difficult thing to do. You're taking someone on, you're taking them on for 3 years. But that's a bit of a barrier to automation. So when that return on investment discussion happens around when you started to grow, and it's, do I take another person on or do I put a robot in? Well, if you take a person on in France, it's 3 years worth of employment plus, and it's expensive. And a robot's cheaper. In the UK, it's cheaper to put a second shift on, and that's what we do. So that's a hard barrier. You definitely don't want to turn off the good side to get the automation in.
So I agree and I disagree. So I think it becomes a theme of most of the podcasts we do. Dan's right that the people don't exist, but the culture hasn't changed. So we're still, where's the person, where's the person, rather than let's automate. Those people don't exist. We go through all the reasons that people in food industry don't work in food industry, so they go on to Amazon. People in Amazon don't like working in Amazon, so they go to Jack and Land Rover. Then, and then it's our old friend scale up, and the ability in this country traditionally to just throw people at it has gone, but the culture hasn't caught up that you need to be automating. And you can't get past, which is why I'm surprised with the work we're doing with the trade unions, although Dan and I don't do that, we get Peter to do it in case it goes wrong. But you can't go past that. Obviously you have a real cultural issue of automation that goes back to the 1970s strikes, which is why I get on a bit of a rant-a-thon about, I wish us as an industry, and we were doing it as a trade association when we were still PPMA before COVID, this pitching robot against person. Shut
it's
it
nonsense.
up.
That pisses me off.
Yeah.
It's nonsense. Every company that I've ever worked with in my entire career that's invested in automation is also investing in people.
Yep.
Everybody that's investing in automation, their companies are growing and expanding and they are employing more people. They're doing better. The companies that I went to that would never spend a penny on anything, would never spend a penny on people either. Yep. They didn't train their people, they didn't grow their people. It's always the place where you walked out and had to clean your shoes on the way out. The companies that invest, they invest across the board. Automation, people, training. They are better companies and they're growing. It's just not true.
Yeah. If you don't automate, you don't compete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's no jobs anyway. If the company goes, then where are they going to work?
Productivity is the way to compete. If you make your company more productive and you grow, and that's how you get better.
But if you don't, we'll be very biased towards manufacturing. We call this manufacturing uncensored. We're industrial automation is what we represent. But if you don't automate, you don't compete. Now applies to everything. Yeah. If you're a local council, if you don't automate, you don't compete. What does don't compete mean? It means that you don't give a rate of return, which means that which means that ultimately you go into special measures like you've seen in Birmingham.
Yeah.
If in hospitals, the NHS is currently is it something scary like 44 pence in every pound of taxation goes into the NHS. If there was a level of automation in the NHS that there isn't, and join up, which would be more digital automation, although robotics for operations is quite a fascinating thing. They can't compete. What does not compete means, well, ultimately somebody will change the healthcare model in this country. It is basically whatever job you do.
Yep.
Or frankly, I'd imagine if you're a human person above the age of 2, that bit of where you start transitioning from CBBS to CBBC, right? At that point in transitioning, if you don't automate, you don't compete. It's basically the rest of your life in this country now, the world.
It's just about getting better. We can stop talking about it like it's automated. Every company, every job, you're absolutely right. You just need to try and get better all the time, because if you don't get better, somebody else is going to get better and beat you. And adding in automation, being more productive, being more efficient is a way of getting better. You need to do it all day, every day. The opportunity to stay exactly as you are is really limited in this world.
I've got some stats here that I'll put together. UK productivity growth is about 0.2% per year. Germany's 0.8%. US is 1%. Germany invests 6.6 times more in automation than the UK relative to size. The UK has 100-ish robots per 10,000 workers. Germany 300, China 300, South Korea 1,000. We're now 12th in global manufacturing.
Yeah, I think we're even lower than that in robot density overall. Isn't it lower
robot
than that?
density is like 26, 27.
It's way down.
Also, your American schools and your German schools are they're not having the best of time of it as well. If you were to spot check that probably 3-4 years ago, it would be more vast.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't think at the moment. I don't think Germany and the US are the best benchmarks to be aiming for. I think they've got some of the same issues that we currently have. The Far East definitely do not have any issues with the uptake of automation and putting robotic systems in.
And South America, Brazil is kicking it. You look at the fastest adoption of automation, not in terms of variety. I'm told it's now Brazil. Not in terms of quantity, but in terms of variety, it's Brazil.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Headline number 2. Skill shortages cited as a major barrier to automation growth.
They are. They are.
Okay.
That's not a difficult problem to solve. We've got fantastic universities, we've got brilliant learning institutions. We need to teach people the right skills. It's not a hard problem to solve.
No, we agree. This is basically the greatest hits of Automate UK's rants, But no, we agree. So where we're joined up. I'll just say I remember that years ago. I agree with Nick. I'll just do. I agree with Dan. We're away from this. But no, it's not our responsibility. We can guide, we can shape, but there has to be some fundamental changes. We will try our best as a trade association to give as many hugs and as many bloody noses that we can to try and make that happen. We had the podcast earlier, Dan, with the apprentices, where they both told us they've only been out of school education 5 years, that teachers are still playing down apprenticeships, and you go, well, bloody hell, what the hell's that about? It's one of the reasons why we lobby, it's one of the reasons we try and make UK, but it is ultimately a governmental responsibility.
Yep. We need people with these skills. We're quite happy to provide a list. We can help provide training. We can even give, talk to our members and talk to the catapults about providing facilities. The catapults are not used enough to provide skills and training. So there's lots and lots of money gone in. They are fantastic facilities. They're not full of kids. They should be full of kids.
I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything wrong here, or that I shouldn't be saying. But these amazing centres, they run at a deficit per student.
Yeah.
Just to give them top dollar education in our industry to get them ready, because their apprentices going into the big guys, and I'm thinking of one local to me. It just still feels like there's this disconnect. You said about like we could get members to tell us what when I speak to education, that's their biggest gripe.
Yeah.
So industry doesn't actually tell them. So they'll say to me, well, we have no idea what manufacturers want us to teach them, because the manufacturers won't tell us.
But there's a governmental piece there, because I appreciate there's probably a podcast I did earlier means I'm going to get hate mail from teachers.
Let's not repeat that on this one.
No.
My wife's a teacher, so you're on proper thin ice.
Yeah, well, a proper thin ice. But I mean,
tell her not to watch the previous.
I was having a massive rant about about this devaluing of apprenticeships and things like that.
Not just manufacturing in general.
We got found out earlier that basically if you don't listen, you'll be doing an apprenticeship was still a threat in the 21st century. And
you're working a factory.
Or you work in a factory. You go, holy mother of God, how do we get there? But teachers have limited capacity, and they are very driven by system. So we in industry would dearly love to go and speak to as many teachers as possible, but getting the join up doesn't quite work because it's all time sensitive.
No, I totally agree.
What we have to do is we have to make sure that in manufacturing, whether it be us, our friends at the MTA, Make UK, we have to be making sure that, as well as just looking at the Department of Business and Technology, we've got to be making sure we're doing a lot more talking to the Department of Education, because basically the briefing will come from central to teachers. So we can, if we want to make a real difference, we got to do it that way. We can make a difference at an individual teacher at an individual school. That's how I started my involvement with the Trade Association, is because the girls' school in Sleaford was going to stop doing design and technology at GCSE, and that's basically leads to a path that I'm chairman of Automate UK, because Automate, or PPMA, came in and supported me in stopping that with STEM days. But I just affected one school. That we found out a stat about 3-4 years later. There was that same year there was 300 schools who stopped doing design and technology GCSE.
Yeah, I mean, one of my projects, we partner with the D&T Association. And the CEO there, we had him on our podcast, and he said his sole job now is lobbying to government to just keep D&T in schools.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the way you got to do it.
I'd agree. It's also design technology sometimes is seen as kids playing with a lathe and doing drawings on drawing boards. I mean, those days are absolutely gone. Engineering's kind of quite sexy now, and we're not representing it in the right way. But there's no way that manufacturing companies, tech companies, engineering companies can get into all the schools in the UK unless somebody puts a framework in place that'll enable that to happen. It's just that it's beyond the bandwidth of the organisations. That's got to be governmental incentive. It's got to be off the back of the industrial strategy that we need these things. So
I agree. I'm going to be devil's advocate again. But I think there's actually a very good opportunity for the manufacturer to go into their local college, because the colleges are screaming for manufacturers to engage with them. They've actually got engagement officers in all of these colleges that spend every day cold calling manufacturers and getting nowhere. But then same manufacturers moan about the skills gap. So if they just engage with the local college, with the engineering department, then you've got a future talent pipeline, and you could influence, because this is how desperate some of these colleges are. I've been invited into these curriculum days to bring industry. I'm just a nobody.
No, don't put your public speaking skills down. I think you're quite good.
As a podcaster. But the local manufacturers have got a fantastic opportunity there.
Yeah.
But there's a disconnect between industry and education that I think
but
it can be government, and I agree on the big stuff, or sort of strategy-wise. There's also a very short-term opportunity for a manufacturer to go and speak to an engineering department, because they are desperate to speak to manufacturers.
I think, yes, I get that, but it ships in the night. Your opportunity for the two things to line up is a bit too slight. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Is what you basically got to get in the system is that you, incumbent to you paying the apprenticeship levy, for instance, you have to go and spend some time. And then on the schools, incumbent to your curriculum is that you have to. Right,
Yeah.
That's what you need. So I agree with what you're saying.
But schools is a long-term game. That's more of a change of perception thing. We've got kids that are sat in engineering classes right now that won't get a job.
Yeah.
And there's manufacturers that are saying that they're desperate for young people and aren't speaking to that college.
Yeah, it's Make UK's fault.
There's the trailer sorted.
The one thing I say, throughout my career, I haven't seen engineers not get jobs. Engineers tend to get jobs. They tend to retrain pretty well, because the engineering skill is solving problems, and they're good at adjusting. But we should be able to focus better on the likely skills moving forward. We should be able to share information more. And it's a good point you make around buying things together that the organisations want. So if organisations want apprentices and they're getting apprentices with support, then tie the support to doing some of the things that you just talked about. It's definitely worth doing. But if companies go out and do it on their own, and they do, I mean, lots of companies engage through goodwill, through their own kids' networks at schools. It could be more constructive than that, I think. What you're doing is a good thing. Do it, and I've done it previously, but it can be more constructive than that.
Where do they perceive the issue is when they're ringing the manufacturers? I mean, I suppose the thing you can't say out loud is, are they crap at doing it? You know, I mean,
you have just said that out loud.
I have just said that out loud.
And I'm not going to look at the camera and agree.
No, you're not going to look at the camera. Well, you got one gig spot.
I'm in colleges every week now till Christmas.
They pay good, do they?
No.
Oh, okay.
I wish they paid anything.
Everybody's under time pressure, and it's very, very hard to read everything that comes in and everything that needs to transmit. And I think with some of the education stuff that you come in, if you're an MD or a chief executive, you genuinely tend to go to work with all good intentions. The day gets noisy, and if the information doesn't penetrate, you just go, I just not got the capacity for this. And I would dread to think if somebody could do an audit of my professional life for the last 10 years about how many times I've maybe lost an opportunity that could have made the business more efficient, or how I have lost an opportunity, and probably more importantly, where I could have made the difference to somebody. Because you soon get into a situation, if it's not an inquiry or I'm not interested, put simply, because you got to focus. There's so much noise coming through.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think the issue is that it's such a knock-on effect if one of the big employers says they're not taking apprentices that year.
Yeah.
So I think like a few weeks ago I was sat with one of these people at a college, and they, in their area, they've got one big aerospace company and the rest is SMEs. The aerospace company have told them that this year we're not taking any.
Yeah.
So they know that's half an engineering class that they've got to go to individual SMEs that might take on one each.
Yeah.
So now it's, instead of 10 kids to one place, it's 10 kids to 10 places, and that's what they struggle with. It's because
It's their job.
if I know it's their job, but if less people take on apprentices, then apprentices go
I mean,
down.
I have sympathy, so I've got to be careful what I say. It's their job.
Yeah, I know.
It's their job. Oh, the big one companies are going to have to go around 10 things. Go and do something else. You want to be really frank, right? It's their job. Are they skilled to do it? I don't think they are, and I have massive sympathy for that. I think it should be bizarrely.
But if
It's
them
you can
10
add value to.
If them 10 SMEs don't exist, then okay, they exist, but they're not taking on apprentices either.
Well, that's buggered of that situation, but are they actually making the approaches? And is there...
I don't know, I've not audited their sales skills, but
But this is actually an interesting
I know it's
position.
their job, but that is a repeatable issue that I'm seeing at every college.
Yeah, so basically we have...
So every single employment engagement officer is shit, is what you're saying.
I think this is our
I
old...
think it was important that you said no then.
No, but it's our old friend upskilling, right? Is that every employment officer is brilliant. Every employment officer that you have at colleges has more right to be on this planet than I do. But if we failed to then train them to how to communicate to the industry that they're supposed to be representing, and also to look at how to work more collaboratively and flag, that's a governmental failure again, put rightly. So no, I think all careers officers are brilliant, and I think the difference that they will make to people, if you could ever trace it, is probably equivalent to somebody working in healthcare. So I don't dispute that. But if we've not got them able to do the sales pitching out to the wider world, the poor buggers are set up for failure. That would be my point.
Yeah, and this conversation that was industry screaming and they're saying we can't find the skills, and the colleges are saying we can't place apprentices. Hang on a minute, something's definitely amiss here.
Yep.
The industry should be pulling apprentices, and if they're not exactly the right fit off on the side of the tin, take them on anyway, because engineers are good at retraining in other engineering disciplines. They are good. They want that first step on the ladder. They don't care whether it's with an SME or a big company. So the SME should be pulling, the big company should be pulling the apprentices. I need 4 people this year, 2 people this year, 1 person this year. This is what I'm looking for, but I want someone. And if it's not exactly the right skill, then shape the individual, but talk to them, because kids will shape themselves into what they need to be to fit the shape they need to be at that stage in their career. They're very malleable at that age, and it's great, and they can continue to be malleable in the future.
That's a good point, actually, is that, as I can think of 2 apprentices I haven't taken on because they were brilliant, but the colleges were like, yeah, if they can't do that with you. And I was like, yeah, but I can bend them and suit them into doing this, and the system's a bit stuck. I mean, it's all right. You go, well, where's the money to spend on making this improvement? There is £1.3 billion going back to the Exchequer in unused apprenticeship levy. So this is where I know I say it's their job and I'm being harsh. That ain't their responsibility, but probably 100 grand of that to do some online training on making a careers officer more outward focused. And the exponential growth to solve the problem that you're talking about would probably be dealt with in big forms.
And marketing to the SMEs to say it's a fantastic thing to bring on an apprentice. It's not a burden.
Yep.
It's a brilliant thing to have in your organisation, because they're fantastic. They've got so much more energy than old farts like us. They'll bring new ideas. They'll ask the questions that other people don't ask. They will find different ways of doing things. They see the world in a different way. They're bringing new learning that you haven't seen, especially in an SME where you've got less people and you're not seeing as much of the world. And they've got energy. It's just great. they'll make your business better. They'll do more. They'll do things outside of the remit that you've given them.
What I'd like to do is, because I think where Automate or any trade association can, is that we can be the R&D centre for national policy. I think would how I phrase it. So if you take the apprenticeship cluster that we've done in Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire, that's a blueprint that we'd be happy to share with everybody, where they're working together, we can fill their skills gap because they can move between members. We can't do that nationally, but we can be the blueprint. What I would really like to do when we've probably got through 2026 is one of the main things that Dan's got to do this year is bring end user membership to Automate, which we've spoken about in the past, but we never quite got something that's tangible, and we hope to have something tangible for September. When we've done that and it's all one big club, what I'd like to do is I'd like to see if we could grab some unused levy money from some big end users and then spread it out to some of our memberships SMEs. And then also if we grab some of that money, we could do some stuff like, the one thing I think we are better at Automate now is Marcoms. So we could do a Marcoms element on that. And then again, I like the idea that, and I think it is the role of probably a secondary or tertiary role of a trade association, but it's almost to be like a policy R&D centre. We've proved it with clusters, there's some other stuff we've proved it for. I'd like to grab some end user levy in 27, 28, stick it on some of our members' SMEs, prove the concept, then go back to the Department of Education and say, look what we've done.
Yep.
What you said, that I couldn't agree with all that anymore. It's what Automate Best is doing, and the reaction from the people who are involved. They're at the company they're at, but they're getting that broad network. They're seeing more. They're being involved in shows. They're being involved in conferences. They're being involved in this. It's fantastic, and you can see them growing faster. It's a wonderful blueprint for other people to follow. But it's not something that this organisation can cover on its own. But as a setting up the idea, being that policy R&D, it's great. It's really, really good. And talk to the apprentices who are doing it, which I know you are. They think it's fantastic.
I'd add, as well as taking some of the levy distributed, the applicants that aren't successful in the end users, the primes, they normally just get a no. Why can't we feed them back into the ecosystem?
I agree.
If you get 1,000 applicants at JLR and they only take on 20, well then them 20 are shortlisted from 100. So the other 80 could go into SMEs in the supply chain, for example.
Absolutely.
And that could be replicated throughout other primes.
That might be one of the things that actually gets solved if I'm told that UCAS will be taking over quite a bit of the apprenticeship listings, and they would, I can't remember when it's going to come in, but certainly the next couple of years, and that would basically mean, you've got like university clearing, which is, it's happened forever, right? I mean, I used it, but it's quite a successful digital model that on that Thursday, if you haven't got the A-levels you expected, you can find the course by Friday. There's thoughts that digital platform will get used for apprenticeship. So actually it might be one that government overtakes us.
Yeah, very good.
That, I didn't know that. That's a wonderful thing. It's a process that education is very used to as well. It'd be easier for them to feed into, because apprenticeship is quite often seen as, do I do a degree or do I do an apprenticeship, or do I do further education or do I do college? They're all good things, but if they're dealt with in the same way, it's just what you're doing next. I think that would help with making that progress quicker. And that sort of clearing idea, it works at university. It works really fast. You got a 3 or 4 week window in the summer to change, pretty much everything you've planned for your next, your life for the next 4 years. But it works.
We'll up the education lobbying. I mean, we're doing quite a bit, but we'll up that. I think when we up that, I don't know, but I think the mood music is right with, this reality of 957,000, I've said it in every podcast today, 16 to 24-year-olds out of work. The appetite's there, and we'll up the lobbying, but behind it, we've got to do this R&D piece as well.
Okay, bullshit or backbone? No answer until you give us a bullshit or backbone. Okay. UK manufacturers think long term when it comes to automation.
Bullshit.
Why?
They'd like to. They'd like to. The opportunities is not there, especially at an SME level, but it works all the way through. They want to plan long term, but finances work short term and needs work short term. It is difficult to plan in the long term. Everybody knows it's better. The way we lend money, the way we have incentives, they are all short term, 1-2 year. This short term return on investment, it's not a way to plan in the long term, and it doesn't have to be like that. So I don't think organisations, they'll have a 3-5 year plan, but the investment plan will be for 2 years. They're short. We don't make it easy for ourselves.
It's the same. I mean, end user, but even like when I've worked for the automation suppliers, everyone is on a short term. Everyone's on KPIs. We need to sell the 10 robots this month, or it's just a cultural thing that feels like you're hitting your head against the brick wall.
Yeah, I guess we all live by the financial year a bit too much compared to other countries, and ROI and the ability. It's probably changing a little bit, but normally if you look at any process, it's the customer drives the process. So if you look at a supermarket will have 3-4 clauses, which means they dump their supplier, which means that supplier has to take a short-term view on the automation they put in, even down to the fact that, if you order a car, which daisy chains all the way back to it, in this country, you're not actually duty bound to accept the car until the day you get it. So it's all kind of too end user biased, really. I guess it changes eventually. I think less people producing, a reality that I think this 60-day payment term thing might make a big difference, because if we start having that everybody has to be paid in 60 days, it leads to many more conversations of fairness. I know it sounds daft, but I've been thinking about that. Is that if we have this 60-day payment term thing, it forces everything to be more partnership based and be more fair. And it
brings the supply chain up as well, though, doesn't it?
Yes.
SMEs
The
falling
amount of
over.
time SMEs, it's not wasted time, it's got to be done, but rescheduling cash flow. It takes up so much time, and it's senior management, senior financial management, and what they're doing is they're damaging their supply chain while they're doing it, and it's so unhelpful.
Certainty breeds confidence is such an obvious line, but you've got to remember, even if the certainty is not great, so 2010, the coalition government, during the election, you don't sell a lot of equipment anyway. And then when we had the 4 or 5 weeks of the coalition being formed, let's say it's a couple of weeks, right, is that you had no certainty, so it all went quiet. As soon as there was certainty, the fact it was the first coalition government there'd ever really been, is it going to work? Yeah. But at least there was certainty. So I know it sounds, you're saying about adoption of automation and I'm saying 60-day payment terms, but the two, or short term, but the two align, because if everybody knows that the rules of the game is 60-day payment terms all the way through a process, it creates a level of certainty, and certainty will then give capacity for people to take educational risk and look slightly more long term.
Yeah. Certainty is anything that we can do to create an environment that people understand, that works in the longer term, that is the biggest thing that will make any difference. Capital investment is difficult. Everything that we're talking about in terms of automation is big capital investment. They're big numbers. Anything we can do to make that less risky financially makes it easier for people to do the right things. I think people know what the right things are. So there's no desire not to think in the long term. Everybody knows what the right thing to do is, but the environment is not always there to be able to think like that. So you make short-term decisions, and I've done it, and I'm sure you've done it as well.
Trade bodies and industry leaders are doing enough to drive change.
Absolutely. I've felt there's been a real change since, whereas one change was about January 2023, and I've noticed real change again about February 2026. And I can't remember what's significant about these.
So what is it, backbone?
Trade bodies and industry leaders are doing enough to drive change. Are they doing enough?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean they can't do more. It needs to be more. It needs to be more joined up.
He needs to say bullshit on that,
Okay. Felt like he answered with a long answer then.
Backbone.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That's a tricky question because you've put enough. They're doing a lot. It can be more. It can be much more.
So not enough.
It needs to be. Yeah, that's you're leading the witness, aren't you?
Well, I'll say, okay. Bullshit, but it's not for the one to try.
No.
Right, I think it would be my phrase, which is the same but different, right? It's better, but you've got such a situation where the trade association climate has changed, and where a lot of the big ones got caught up in kiss-arsing the government of the day, and then small ones like us would be too exhibition focused. So it is a changing culture at trade associations of any kind at the moment, I would say.
I wouldn't be disparaging of the amount of work that people are putting in to do it, which is why I was a little bit reticent to give you an answer, because the desire of all the people that are sitting in those positions is really, really strong, and they're really focused and they genuinely care. No one's doing it that doesn't really care about it. Yep. It's not all joined up though. There are a lot of different bodies.
Yep.
My follow-up, do we think there's too many?
Maybe, but it doesn't matter if there's too many, if they're all pushing in the same direction. What would worry me is that we're not necessarily pushing in the same direction. And the direction of a trade body should be to support the industry that it's in and the members that it's in, not to support its own existence. It needs to be doing the right thing. And if the different bodies get a little bit too involved in their own existence, then they're not doing what the members and the industry needs. Pulling them, trying to get a bit of common purpose would be hugely beneficial. I want to spend more time talking to the other trade bodies. I want to spend more time talking to the quasi-governmental bodies, because if we point in the same direction, doesn't matter how many there are, there can be more, but if we're all saying the same thing, or broadly the same thing, it won't matter, it's just more voices.
I mean, I'm hopeful the new chair of the UK Automation Forum might make a bit of a difference.
I would hope so.
I would hope so.
I've heard he's all right.
I've heard he's all right.
Yeah.
What, that podcaster? Right, that's the end of bullshit or back.
We joke, but I mean, we can all make the difference. Actually, it's all three of us can make that difference. Is there too many trade associations? You can't really stop a trade association from forming. What you can make sure is that it doesn't become competitive. So we need to make sure that we've got the best collaborative work. We do it right. We've got a very good collaborative relationship with the MTA. We've got a very good collaborative relationship with Make UK. There's Tech UK. There's the Intralogistics guys. You shouldn't turn off enthusiasm. So if somebody wants to be the trade association for humanoid robots, and we haven't taken that opportunity, let them be. What we've got to make sure at Automate UK is we don't treat them like a competitor, which I think we've got out of doing.
Exactly.
And we've got to make sure that we give them lovely support.
They've got to be in the conversation.
Yeah, and I think we've got a blueprint. I mean, it needs to go to second gear, which is why, you know, we got made the changes we have with Dan coming on board and other things we're doing, you know, with Pete in policy and things like that. I think we've got a blueprint on how to get kicked off. And hopefully in a couple of years' time we'll have a blueprint on how to the second phase. I mean, look, PPMA existed for 35 years, but I would say that we are quite the blueprint on how to be a trade association post-COVID and post-Brexit.
Yep.
It's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to pick Dan apart on his CV and what it's like being a CEO. This is, so like I said, end of bullshit or backbone. What's something the industry expects Automate UK to fix that you think they actually need to fix themselves?
The way they address their customers. I think we can help. I think there's things that we can do to help. But I think all of the companies out there, and I've been in those companies, the way you address your customers needs to be outside of RFQs. You need to be talking to your customers all the time. You need to offer up time to talk to them and understand what they need. That's not something that we should be telling them. The best suppliers, the best companies will have an ongoing dialogue with their customers and potential customers, and that's their competitive edge. You shouldn't need a trade body to tell you that. And I see it not happening.
No, he's right. I mean, I think a bugbear of mine, I appreciate that I drank the Kool-Aid and I became quite, you know, more service, you know, much service provider as equipment provider, because there's money in it, frankly, you know, 10 years ago. But the one thing I would say is still very bad with equipment suppliers is the sell and forget mentality. And you need to check that people are still happy, and you need to you learn from it.
It's back to that short-term KPI thing. You know, the amount of companies I've worked for that's like, well, I've sold to this account, which means I've got 10% of my numbers, so I need the other 90%. So I'm hammering the door on the other, and you forget about key account management. It's business development.
Yeah, I work with sales guys who are good sales guys. Work for a sheet metal industry, great big laser cutting machines, fantastic automation that came with those machines if the customer wanted it. The sales guys didn't sell it because it was hard work. It was easier to sell the machine. The machine was the most, the largest part of the investment. They got their bonuses based on level of commission, so I'll just do the easy bit and move on. It's not what the customer needed. The customers that bought the automation stayed with the company. They never left because we'd given them what they needed. We made their businesses better. They made more money. They bought more stuff. So it was really short-sighted. But what we've done is given a sales guy a KPI that he's going to manipulate to do what he thinks is best. Talk to your customers. Find out what they actually need. It's important.
I think is BDM going to be a person responsibility or an AI responsibility is an interesting question, right? Right, because you could actually get to the point where a virtual person, but
if everyone does it.
If everyone does it, but
then it's just noise.
But then I think one thing that you're seeing though is that there'll be this trend where repetitive stuff would go down a more automated AI route, even in terms of marketing and BDM. But that means that the importance of human contact in other parts of the process is going to be more important than ever. And I would say the two things that this industry has absolutely got to nail is basically application engineering at the front end, which you're alluding to with the problem, because AI isn't going to see the problem, the human's going to see the problem. Yeah. The fact that AI is then going to maybe help the person say, well, we've seen this before, we can use that bit, And then the other thing is that people are going to need the human, to be retained as a supplier, you're going to need the human contact of key account management, and the creativity of the human off the back of that. That's the success. I think that I said it awfully about sales. You know, there's a lot less sales managers than there was 10 years ago in our industry. Even after you filter out that they've all been given slightly kind of Trojan horse job titles. But there's a lot more application engineers, there's a lot more key account managers, there's a lot more customer service engineers who've got communication skills. And so it's coming, and Dan's right, we can provide courses on communication skills for engineers. We can provide courses on key account management, but it's for our members to keep up with trends.
Yeah.
And if they don't keep up with trends, we can't really do a lot about that.
When I was a commercial director, I preferred to go to meetings with an applications engineer or a process engineer and let them talk to the customer about what they needed. Because I had the word commercial in my title, so I was clearly a liar.
Yeah.
Clearly someone who's just trying to sell stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas the engineer, they only tell the truth, and they're looking to help, and they're the best people to sell. They're the best people to ask the questions.
I think you buy a machine off me, not because I'm managing director of Grunwald. You buy a machine off me because at this given moment, I'm the most experienced person in specifying cut filling projects in the UK. Somebody else will replace me, you know, and I'm probably at the top of the hill about to go down. But you buy a machine off me not because I'm James Causebrook MD. You buy a machine off me because I'm at this given moment the best application engineer for my type of equipment in the UK. Feel a bit of a tosser saying that out loud, but
Yeah, I'm going to ask Dan to
I feel terrible because I'm older than him.
yeah,
If he's over the hill, I'm way down the other side.
you know, and then I'm partnered with the other person who's just as good, you know. And it's not, again, when we factor in Sam and I working together, it's not that we're the business owners, it's this, we are absolutely the best application engineers at this given moment.
We end the podcast there.
I think it's actually the first thing I've ever actually said bigging myself up on this podcast, right? But it proves the model.
Yeah. What were you expecting from the role, and is there anything that was different to what you were expecting?
From this role now?
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that have come as a surprise, and they shouldn't have done. So it's the first trade body I've worked with. Okay, so I'm used to working in organisations, and I'm used to working in big organisations and small organisations. Trade bodies are top heavy. All of the skills are in the directorship and the members above the organisation. And the organisation itself is relatively small and not very technical. So I am one of the most technical people who actually work for Automate UK, because what Automate UK does is serve the members, but the skill is in the membership and the technical knowledge is in the membership. So it's an incredibly dynamic, educated, technically savvy board of directors, which isn't always the case in organisations I've worked with. They're all technical people. But the skill is in the membership, not in the organisation itself. That shouldn't have come as a surprise. So that it has is probably on me, but wasn't what I was expecting. In terms of what the role is, not unexpected, but the amount of scope within this role is properly exciting. It's genuinely exciting. Having to make decisions on a daily basis of which bit to do first, because there are so many opportunities. And the other part is it's kind of opened my eyes to, you said, are there too many trade bodies and organisations? I'm learning how many there are. So I've been familiar with the ones that I've touched in my previous life, but there's so many that I haven't. So there's an enormous amount of other institutions out there that we can do more with. But yeah, it's a lot.
So I didn't lie to him.
They didn't mind. No, not at any point.
If you could fix one thing tomorrow, not technology, what would it be?
Probably his chairman.
I like a chairman who's a bit brave. It's good. You don't want timid people at the top. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Something that made it easier to invest in capital equipment, and any kind of offset that made it easier to invest in capital equipment. Anything that would spread the costs, anything that would defer the costs, that would help.
Yep.
Is there anything that you're looking to do differently as the CEO? Is there anything that you're actively trying to change?
Yeah, I genuinely think the organisation ought to be broader. It will represent the industry better if it represents all of the industry. So I'd like to make the organisation bigger. I'd like to make it more representative of more industries. I'd like to give the opportunity for the members that are already there and the members that come in to be able to diversify safely into other sectors. Anything that they can do to protect their business from changes in one particular market or sector, and I think that's something that we can deliver. There are some members that we've got, the big drives and controls companies, the robot suppliers, the major equipment suppliers, parts suppliers, the vision companies. They work across all industries in the UK. So it's a great platform for some of the other members that only work in one of the sectors to be able to diversify safely.
Yes.
That I think we can do.
I agree. I mean, there's like industries next door to end user industries next door to what our members do. Recycling. I think I've said it before. If you look at a recycling plant, it looks like a confectionery flex picker going backwards.
Yeah.
So you know, there's a world around us that you can bolt on pretty quickly. Robotics in construction is a very interesting prospect because it's basically, put in simple term, a cobot with a 3D printer on it can build your house.
Yeah.
And construction also have similar skills issues.
And horrific safety issues that we could sort as well. You know, it's still construction and agriculture are still the most two dangerous industries to work in, right?
Some of the work that I did in one of my previous lives was around modular buildings and getting the building work off site where it's irregular, weather dependent, dangerous as all hell, variable cost, and getting it into a factory where you can control the quality, control the output, do it safely, do it consistently, and put it on site when it's done. That is a fantastic use of automation. It ticks all the boxes. It costs less money. It takes away the site costs. It's much safer. What a fantastic use of automation that is. So, yeah, I think Automate UK can do a good job of that. And when I've changed industry, I've found out that most of the problems are exactly the same. You're right. When you get a line doing one thing in one sector and a line doing another thing in another sector, the product is completely different. But it's still made up of pieces of equipment tied together with software and controls with an overriding system and an MES. It's the same animal. What you need is access to the customers, and we've got members who have access to all of those customers. They're already talking to them. You need access to the language that goes with that particular sector as well. We can help with that. We can definitely help with that.
I was sat in a line in a CT scanner a month ago. Checking whether I got a brain. And you're
inconclusive.
And you actually realise the correlation between a CT scanner and a shrink wrapper is actually bloody small. Because I've sat in this CT scanner and it's got the same motor as it's got some clever shit on it, obviously, but it's got the same motor as a shrink wrapper. It was full of sick and IFM sensors.
Yeah.
You know, it's got a servo motor on it. It had an Eaton HMI on it. And that's when you realise that there's not between the machine that shrink wraps a pallet of, compost and the machine that checks where I got the brain, it's quite an overlapping Venn diagram. So we've got to make sure we capitalise on that.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I agree.
Comments went off the back of that.
Might be the last podcast where I've got this nose.
Yeah.
Coming back with Barry Manilow.
Who?
He's got quite half a note.
Ticking the old box.
I take it since the last recordings of these, we've all failed to watch the Naked Gun and Airplane films again.
I forgot about
this again. I said I wanted to be. Who played me in a film? He asked me on one. I said Leslie Nielsen. Just like,
No idea. Right. Is there anything we haven't asked you that you wish we had? Or is there something that the members should know about you or your role or your plans?
I'm going to do stuff. I don't want it to carry on like it is. There's nothing bad about what Automate UK is doing. There's nothing bad about this, the Automation Forum, Barra, Ukiva. There's nothing bad anywhere. There's just scope. There's so much scope to do stuff. What we want is the ability to do that. So the message to the members will be anything that you think can be done more effectively, anywhere where we can drive additional revenue that we can drive back into supporting business. Anything that we can do with the government, any Innovation UK programs we think we should be supporting, tell us, because I genuinely think we can do more, and I really, really want to do more. It's the first time I've worked in a job where I haven't had to deliver a direct, year by year, quarter by quarter commercial outcome. What I'm supposed to do is make the industry better. So I want to do that.
Solid answer.
That's an answer.
Keeps the chairman happy.
Well, that and his ability, his ability to profile people before they interview him is why he got the job. It must be nice turning up to a place where there's a lot of parking today, was it?
Yeah.
Can we put that on camera? That was the slickest thing ever.
Definitely worth checking out who's interviewing you before you get to an interview.
Everything that Danny said is fundamentally why Dan got the job. And also, we've been playing around about how we bring end users in to the organisation, and we kind of got to a point of the product portfolio looks like, but what you're trying to achieve. And then, and that was done by Steve Jones, who's our marketing and comms director. And 2 days later, he turned up with basically the same presentation. You go, so it kind of works. But the other thing is, we did the second set of interviews, Dan's final interview, we did at Schubert near Birmingham Airport. And they're quite limited on parking spaces. And Dan, being a very organised man and me being a slightly disorganised man, Dan turned up 15 minutes early for his interview. I've turned up 15 minutes late from having the conversation about what we were supposed to be doing that day. And there was one car parking space left. And there are 2 cars. One is me, one is Dan. Dan had done a suitable amount of LinkedIn stalking to realise what my little chubby face was. So I noticed that a car disappeared around the corner, and suddenly I had even though he was a little bit ahead of the race, I noticed that I suddenly had the last parking space.
Very nice.
And I thought that's good attention to detail.
It is.
Yeah, slick that, right?
I was fine on the road. It was a much better idea.
Yeah. Slick, eh? That's impressive, right?
Right, last part. This is the closer. Say the quiet part out loud. So what's the truth about UK manufacturing and automation that people don't want to hear?
I think this is a bit of a unique thing in the UK. People are very happy, business leaders, entrepreneurs, to build a company up to a position and sell it, or let it go and make money and step away. In Germany, and in America in particular, there's a desire to build an empire that you can pass on to your kids or pass on to shareholders. People are happy to step away. So I've talked to 2 or 3 business leaders in the last few months who've got their business to a position where they are happy to step away. And it's because it's quite hard work. I don't think people want to hear that, but it's something that we've got within the DNA. It's one of the things that stops us building bigger companies. I don't know what the solution to that is, but there has to be a better way of incentivizing people to continue to build companies into larger organizations, or to merge with other companies in constructive ways. it might be something that's in the DNA of the country, but there was a flurry 10 years ago of employee ownership companies and people finding a way to step away. And the idea's good, but the way it was implemented hasn't been great, where you're kind of setting the price for the company and then taking the benefit of it. And there's a few overvalued companies out there as a result of that. And they've suffered from being overvalued at that point. So that's a bit of a UK DNA thing that I don't think is helpful. We need companies to keep going. We need them to keep growing, because when companies fail or they don't continue to grow, the dynamics break. You need companies to continue to want to get better.
Oh, he's absolutely right. I think the whole kind of business ownership thing in the UK is completely undervalued. We undervalue the people who do it. We don't breed a culture where they feel that they're supported. The jeopardy's on them, and there's no real incentive. There's no real incentive for them to keep hold of it and keep hold of the jeopardy when you've still got entrepreneurial tax at 10%. There comes a point, maybe entrepreneurial tax should probably still be kept at 10%, but you should have a world where that's a last resort. And we don't value SMEs. You know my view on that. I just think that's savage. Corporate people are better than SME people. No, both are as good as each other, but in different ways. So I couldn't agree more how we do with that DNA. I think, but again, it's a governmental thing, right? We need to, as a government, and they're definitely not doing it, because obviously the taxation policy means that there's this implication that self-employed people are kind of on the take, was almost what the taxation policy was a year ago.
Yeah.
It's not true. So the government needs to be better at entrepreneurs.
If you're an entrepreneur and you make a lot of money, you deserve everything you get.
Yep.
Absolutely everything. It's bloody hard starting a company, and most of them fail.
Yeah.
So for all the successes, and people point at really successful entrepreneurs and go, look at the money they're making, it's not fair. It is absolutely fair. They put everything on the line to do that, and almost all of them do. You don't hear about the other however many it is in 10 that fail, where they lose their house, they lose their car, they have to change job, they have to move to the other side of the country, and they have to start all over again. They deserve everything they've got. And it's entrepreneurs that create employment, that create the jobs, that create the companies that produce the tax dollars that the country uses. The entrepreneurs deserve everything they've got. It's a difficult thing to do.
We're getting some reoccurring themes on these podcasts, aren't we? But I don't actually perceive that as a problem, because I think we're down to probably, using an engineering term, a snag list of about 7 things. And if you dealt with entrepreneurial perception, you dealt with education, join up.
Views on apprenticeships.
There's
Funding.
Yeah. There's some reoccurring themes, but what it's actually giving me some heart is the fact we have reoccurring themes actually tells you that there's not like the biggest to-do list. They're big ticket items, but there's probably you've sort out 5 of the reoccurring themes that come up every time we do an event, or we do a questionnaire, or we do these podcasts. You'd make a hell of a difference to society, let alone our industry.
Let's end it there. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate your time.
No, it's been great. Thank you very much indeed.